Good afternoon, and welcome back to our episode where we discuss a lot of things with our Gothic guests. Normally, we just have one, but we have six, right now five, but we're going to have one joining us a little later into the program. And we just want to thank Jason Markiewitz for collaborating with us and getting all of this together. The group that he has is amazing. Jeanie and I have gotten to listen to a preview of their production of The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, adapted by Jason Markiewicz. So, Jason, would you like to introduce the cast?
Oh, sure. Thank you. First, definitely say thank you to you guys for having us on. The 6 Degrees of Edgar Allan Poe has been a great podcast, and really appreciate the opportunity, as this is a Poe-themed audio drama, to be able to utilize you guys to help get the word out about our recent production, and then also to help showcase our voice actors and help them, get additional notoriety, not just for their own work, but also as a promotional value for this upcoming project, which will be coming out on May 16th. So thank you very much for the time. So on the line with us today, we've got 6 of our crew, myself included. Now we have Dee Dee on here as well. So it's great to have the full crew that was able to make it today. So we'll start off first. I'll introduce Mark Biaggi. Mark is the titular character for Masque of the Red Death. He is the mummer. He is quote unquote death in person throughout this production. And for anyone who knows the story of the Masque of the Red Death, the mummer / death does not actually have dialogue. So in order to not just bring that character into the forefront in an audio drama where you don't see visually anything happening, it's all carried by audio. We needed someone with the gravitas to be able to do that, and I was just over the moon grateful to have Mark agree to do this. And as for anyone who has heard this already knows that this was an extremely good casting. So thank you, Mark. It was fantastic. So Mark, go ahead and say a few words about yourself.
Yeah. I'm Mark Biaggi. I'm a voice actor, as you that's been in the industry for quite a few decades now. I'm probably most famous for a lot of my animation work, and in video game especially. A lot of video game work. In fact, the work I did for Sonic games, the Sonic the Hedgehog series, as Vector the Crocodile and Professor Gerald Robotnik, are probably 2 of the most famous roles that I get most notoriety on. But I've done a lot of other things. Right now, working more on audiobook type stuff. So there's a lot of stuff there. Some projects I can't talk about. There was a recent release of something called Jump Leads, which is a sci-fi audio comedy broadcast that's done a podcast that was just released in season 2, and it's got a stellar cast. I mean, I'm in there with like Debbie Derryberry and Dave Fennoy and all sorts of people. I mean, I can't even remember all the names because there were just so many notable names and stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and it's always I'm a big horror fan and science fiction fan. So, and I've always been a Poe fan since I was a kid. So the stories have always been important to me in my life. So it was really exciting when I found out about this project. I auditioned and was really glad to be cast and be part of this great production. So I think you're all going to really enjoy it.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Next up, I'll introduce Leah Rose. So Leah has been doing a lot of theater work throughout Sacramento. I'll give her a chance to talk about her and her upcoming projects and things. But people who have heard our production of The Telltale Heart have heard Leah Rose before. She played the homeless woman in the barn, which allowed for some of the bookend parts of the story to take shape in its more inspired adaptation of the actual story. So a character that was not present in the original Telltale Heart, but she brought that to life, and it was very grateful to have her as part of the cast there. And so it was really an easy recast to get her involved here in Masque of the Red Death. And the thing that you will notice for the ensemble that we have is you've got key parts of the Masquerade, key parts of the after effects, especially as Death starts making his way through all the different rooms and causing havoc throughout the story. You'll hear our ensemble in various roles, kind of really bringing some of that exasperation and death, to the forefront for the listener. But Leah was also as we call her, the bold party guest, the one who comes out of the crowd to ask the prince to dance. And this was just done so well. So Leah, go ahead and say a few words about your work and what's coming up for you.
Thank you so much, Jason. So I've, like Jason said, I've been doing theater work for about 20 years in the Sacramento area in various capacities. I have acted, I have stage managed, and I have done dramaturgy. This is why I was really excited to be part of this project, because as both a performer, I'm trained as a historian. I love the opportunity to delve into anything really related to American history, and particularly American literature. I love Poe. I first read Poe in college, and I love sort of macabre nature of all of it, Gothicness of it, the American Gothic, and being part of this project, especially since some of it we got to at least read together, and to have that full sort of cast experience, which I'm new to audio work, but I understand you don't always get that. And that was one of the things that made this project really quite special. So it's a to see everyone again after a couple of years since we recorded. So it's really great to be back.
Thanks, Leah. Next, I'll introduce Tana Colburn. And so Tana, as you can see, is doing this here from Boston, and there's a statue of Edgar Allan Poe around that area there. He is. And so Tana was one of the ensemble, and I've been able to work with her and, well, really pretty much everybody in the Sacramento area that is here part of the team for Masque of the Red Death in some theatrical capacity or another. And so Tana was able to come into the team here as part of the ensemble and really provide not just some of the key character moments that you'll hear later in the story, but a lot of the, as we would call it, walla in a lot of the theatrical and the voice actor, is the background effects, things that really kind of set the depth of the scene. So it's not just two people up in the front, but really giving some good characterization to what's happening behind what the main characters are doing. And so she and Dee Dee and Leah and Chad really provided a lot of that as we went through the original cast production. So Tana, I'll give you a moment to talk about yourself and what's up next.
Well, as Jason said, I happen to be in Boston today. The timing came together. And so it was like, hey, wait a second. Wasn't Edgar Allan Poe born in Boston? And sure enough, this statue is across from Boston Common and near the house, which has since been torn down, where Edgar Allan Poe was born. And even though he didn't really like Boston, it is where he was born. And there is a statue here of him leaving Boston.
Yes.
So I have been involved with theater, amateur, community, professional for more than 50 years. I also have worked in television, where most of my voiceover work has been. Doing commercials and public service announcements and industrial videos, voicing industrial videos. As far as theater goes, I love the ability in community theater, to do a little bit of everything. And Free Fall Stage is in the audition process for an adaptation of It Happened One Night. And then nice. I am, for another theater company, Hummingbird, I am in rehearsals getting close to tech for a production of Romeo and Juliet in a local haunted house venue. And the Montagues, Romeo's family, are pirates. And I am Lady Montague, so I get to be a pirate.
Nice.
But Yeah, it's really fun. And I had just so enjoyed working on this project, being invited by Jason and getting to be in the recording studio with Chad and Dee Dee. And I've worked with Leah before, so it's lots of fun.
Very cool.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Tana. Next up, we've got Chad Eldridge. Chad did a lot of different background work in this. So you'll hear his voice pretty much throughout the last 2/3 of this in various capacities. And then he's got, of course, I tried to make sure that everyone had featured characters in this as well. So you do hear him, as Prospero and Viceroy are making their way through the rooms, you hear him as well. But this was a great project to have Chad in. Did a lot of great story review for me as well. So as we were working the script, as I was mentioning to our hosts, I wanted to not just make a Poe story, but something that would carry its own in the audio drama world as well. So it had to be familiar on both sides of the house, had to be a good script. It had to really stand on its own. Chad helped with some good feedback on this, just the same way that he gave great feedback on a couple of the other Poe scripts. So Chad's been a good help in this whole process as we've gone through. So anyway, Chad, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and some more about your work.
Hi. Yeah, my name's Chad Eldridge, and just introduce my work. I'm mainly a creative writer. I'm still studying at a Sac State as of now, having graduated from Folsom Lake College in the Sacramento area. I've had some poetry published. I've had some short stories published. Looking to have some more work published later this year at Sac State. And yeah, I think that kind of background, that kind of mindset, is something that I'd imagine was helpful for Jason in adjusting little things about the script or even with the production or whatever. But I did enjoy the experience of getting to be in the studio as it was being recorded and seeing like how things are processed and whatnot, and how what Jason's process was. I think my favorite detail of that night was when we had to be quiet for a few moments, or not be quiet for a few moments. We had to wait a few moments for a train to pass by because we could barely hear it, but his microphone could. That's how good his tech is. And it was also fun, trying to scream bloody murder at the top of our lungs. I don't feel like you have to do that very often in theater, which is a lot of where I've acted before. This is my first voice acting credit, I believe. Most of my acting has been on stage at Free Fall Stage for the most part. So yeah, it was a pleasure to be part of this, and I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, and I'll add one quick thing on here because just Chad was saying, about the creative writing aspect of it. I'm sure anybody who has been in creative environments one way or another have sent that out to people, whether it's a script, a short story, a poem, whatever, and sent that out. And their friend or their colleagues or have sent it back and said, "Oh, this was great. Thanks. I enjoyed reading it." Which we were hoping for something probably more critical than that. We were asking for a review. Give me where the holes are. Tell me where we can improve, right? And so I remember a script I sent over to Chad. And I think he sent back, I think it was about 14 pages long of notes. I was like, oh my gosh, your notes were longer than the script. So, but all in good nature. It was, and I told him so, when we were corresponding, that's exactly the things we're looking for. Because for me, of course, I thought it was great. I'm the one who wrote it. So I'm sending it out to everybody to say, show me where the problems are. And Chad was a great resource on that to send back the things that needed to be fixed or things that were confusing. So using that creative writing, brain to kind of take it through on these scripts, which if it doesn't flow well, it's going to be hard even in the post to get it to work. So really great to have that at the beginning. So thanks for that, Chad. All right, and the final member that we have here on the panel today is Deanne Farina Eldridge, goes by Dee Dee, and she's a person I've worked with for many years in Sacramento in the theater aspect of it, and was our ensemble crew as well. And we will dub her officially and lovingly as our scream queen. So when you're going through the story and you listen, whether it's the pitches, the lengths, the duration, the changes, all of the different screams in here. This is the young lady who did all of those various screams. So she's got the hallmark of being our scream queen for Masque of the Red Death. But just a great person to be around, and it was a lot of fun having her on the project. So Dee Dee, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and a little bit more about your projects.
Well, first of all, I love being called a young lady. I'll tell you that. My apologies for bouncing around. I teach for a local professional theater company and left a class to come in. So I'm trying to find a comfortable place to sit. Oh goodness, what do I say? When, I don't know, something maybe Jason was saying earlier, I have a very vivid memory as probably, I want to say it was third grade, but it couldn't have been third grade. Maybe it was fifth grade, but I know it was elementary school, of watching. This is when films were on reels and they would roll the. I remember watching a film. It was like graphic of the Raven, and scared the bejeebers out of me. Oh, no, wait a minute. I think we saw the Raven, but it was the Telltale Heart. Yeah, because each time the heart beat, the heart would get bigger. Oh my gosh, it freaked me out. Anyway, that's my earliest memory of Poe. I have wanted to get into voiceover for quite some time. I can't wait till Jason comes back to California so that I can pick his brain about getting involved. I told him not long ago that as you get older, you can do more voiceover roles, especially as a woman, that you can in person. So I'd love to do that. But this was such great fun. He'd been doing it for a while before I got involved with him. And I know that Leah said something about usually you are there by yourself. I didn't do it by myself. I was there with Chad and Emma. And being a theater person, being able to feed off of one another it was so fun. It was just a really, really fun time to be together.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Dee Dee, because the ability for us to do that, even with Brennan and me, as we were playing the Prospero Viceroy parts, and having us both on mic at the same time, the organic nature of the things that are frustrating, the things that we don't. I mean, we can even see each other's facial expressions, and it creates a different way of line delivery after that. As they say on stage, theater is acting, but it's also reacting, and when you are together, you can do that. When you're just recording lines in your booth by yourself, it's an effort, to make sure that it carries across. So the organic nature of this is something I really enjoyed. So that's our cast. I'll do a quick intro on myself. So I wrote, produced, directed this. I know for those who know the story of Masque of the Red Death, it's largely narrative, very little dialogue. So it was a pretty large overhaul on the script to be able to create multiple characters. But the intent for me was not just to create a lot of characters, but every character has to help drive the story. If they don't drive the plot, are they really an important character to have in the story itself? So regardless if it was a singular party guest that said some sort of a question, you'll notice that the responses that come back, it drives the story. So that was very important to have in this particular audio drama. I've done now, this will be the 11th audio drama production that my particular company has been able to produce between Edgar Allan Poe works and our Christmas productions. And so each one, I think you learn a little bit more through the process. And I'm glad that this one is our most recent. A lot of the lessons learned from previous Poe productions, as well as previous Christmas productions, learning more about audio leveling and sound design, learning a little bit more about integration of music and being able to have the musician's score that carries the feeling of the scene. I think each of those have improved over the course of the years. And that was very important, even though we recorded this, as some have iterated already before. We did this back in 2022 for the initial recording. There have been some pieces brought in since then, but nonetheless, the vast majority of it was recorded almost 4 years ago. And so during that time, I think the beauty of where this project is right now in its final state is because of that learning process in other projects over the course of the years, which I really am grateful, even though it was a lag and a delay, to be able to have that experience, to be able to bring a better product, because I'm very proud of this audio drama and what we were able to accomplish. And I think it's going to be the best one that we've put out to this point. And I know our listeners are going to be appreciating the full experience as they go through and listen to this half-hour long adaptation of Masque of the Red Death. So thank you all for being on here. I'll turn it back over to our hosts and we'll continue on. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Hold on. Got like some kind of weird echo going on.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, that's just my own voice in my head. Sorry. But anyway. Well, one of the things that Carmen and I like to talk about, and you guys have hit upon most of it, is the tie-in with Edgar Allan Poe. Because of our podcast, we are very much wanting to reintroduce or introduce to those who may not have any, idea about Edgar Allan Poe to a broader audience. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, Jason. You have put out the Audioworks, and you have done, this is your 5th Edgar Allan Poe, correct? And this is your last one, correct?
It's the last one of this first group, right? I'll be putting together these 5, and there will be a very creative way that all of these 5 are going to be put out en masse here in about a year and a half or so, and I'm working on that thread right now. But this will be the end of the first series. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember that one of the things when Carmen and I first started doing this podcast, we found your YouTube channel and we listened to your Edgar Allan Poe. I think it was The Telltale Heart or The Raven. I can't remember which one came first.
The Raven was first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right. The Raven, because we had you on our first season podcast with The Raven, I believe. Yeah, way back when.
Way back. So, yes, ma'am.
Yes. But one of the things about the audio dramas and about having Poe and doing a Poe story, introducing it to someone who hasn't had Edgar Allan Poe before, and your adaptation of this story, did that come into play a lot with how you wanted not just to portray your own creative vision, but to keep Poe in it enough to where you can get other people wanting to crave more Poe? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It makes sense. And I think anybody who has worked with an adaptation, they've got 2 things that they've got to do. One is you want to create a story that is as honorific to the original work as you can be, because you don't want to destroy that project in its genesis. But at the same time, you don't want to put your own spin on it, and you want to give it some flavor, some unique value to it that can either identify it as your own, or identify it as maybe an update or a re-engineering or reimagining, as they say in some cases, to a newer audience and bring new people into it. Some of that is characters, some of it is stylistic, some of it is dialogue, and so forth, to modernize dialogue and things like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The whole purpose of this was to take a story that I enjoyed, stay true to Poe's original work, but also bring it in a way that can be readily identifiable as one of our projects, not just a yet one other iteration of the exact same story. And so it said, I think it kept true to that, and it also brought it in its own unique way, which is what we were trying for in the beginning.
Now, this is for as the cast and your characters. Mm-hmm. When you were researching to do your part in this adaptation, drama, I guess, whatever. But anyway, so all of that, when you were researching and getting into your characters, I know from a point of view of when you're doing it in front of a live audience versus when you're doing it from an audio perspective, was it more helpful to be with other actors in the studio when you were doing this? Or would you have preferred just strictly to having it individualized? Because I know from an acting point of view, when you're trying to get into character, using method is one way to do it. If you're just like walking around and trying to visualize it in your head. So as you doing a radio drama, and you can't really put that persona for people to see, how did you bring that character to life to make it not only when you were reading it but as you were acting it, as you were reading it. Does that make sense to everybody? No,
Yeah.
Okay, so go.
So let me push this to Mark first, because everyone else had a chance to record together. Mark was the one who was the only one in the cast that had to record lines individually without being in the studio at all. So I think that'd be awesome to have him kind of lead that off, and then the rest of the team can kind of talk about what they did together, as they were kind of able to do the ensemble parts, there at the studio. So I'll turn it over to Mark.
Sure.
Awesome.
Recording an ensemble is a rarity, to tell you the truth, in the voiceover world. So usually we record singly. On occasion, we'll do something that's called multiples, where sometimes the multiple actors and studios will be hooked up at the same time, but that doesn't happen very often. So I'm in San Diego, and the rest of the cast, as you heard, was in Sacramento. So, and this was still kind of pandemic-y time, as I recall, too. So it was not so easy to get around or anything like that. It would have been great to record in person. It's a luxury when you get that. But as I actually teach voice acting right now at the San Diego School for Creative and Performing Arts to high schoolers there. And what I talk about is the process that we have to do is, it's kind of, as voice actors, we're kind of akin to the mimes in the way that mimes are experts of physical storytelling. We're experts in vocal storytelling. So, but that doesn't mean that you're only doing it with your voice. You're still moving your body, you're changing your expression, changing your posture, putting yourself in imagination into those moments and into those scenes to become the character, and being able to, channel all those emotions and elements. You have to use your imagination a lot, because you are reacting on someone who isn't there. Now, in the session that I did, I tracked all my stuff individually. I don't remember, Jason, did we do a session on Zoom, or did we? I thought I just sent you stuff. I can't remember now.
Well, we did something which I tried it for the first time, but I really liked it. And we did almost like a rehearsal with the entire cast on Zoom. And so we were able to go through from beginning to end with all the characterizations, get everybody kind of in the flow, what we were going to hear, what we're going to do. Then that was prior to the recording session. So it was almost doing a couple of rehearsal sessions first.
Right. It was very much like the first table read, and then a second directed read or so.
Right.
So I had a clear idea for what we were doing and what we were going to have happen in the environment. So that was very useful for me to be able to. I gave him several takes of things so that he could work with that, have some options to work with, and if he needed me to re-record something, I just send him a re-recording of something that might work better in the scene. But it is different working in that regard as opposed to working in an ensemble. There are other challenges in an ensemble, just technically. Got to worry about mic bleed. You got to worry about all these other types of things that are happening in the recording environment. So technically, it's much more complicated and much more difficult. You have to do a lot of preparation. You have to do a lot of engineering to make that work out. So it's a testament to all the stuff that Jason's been doing to be able to do that with a group from his studio. So. And many of us voice actors have home studios these days. It's kind of standard. I have one here, and I record most stuff here at home and then send it out. It's the same way. We started doing this long before on-camera actors started doing self-tapes, as they call them now, or even though there's no tapes involved, but some recordings that they're doing and sending things in. So there are advantages and disadvantages of that. I think the biggest disadvantage is that you also don't have somebody there live with you to react to or to give you direction. So you have to really be good at putting yourself more in that moment. But when you have the luxury that we have of the cast recording, and I'm sure you're going to hear this from the people who are part of that, it was great just to be able to do the Zoom rehearsal with them, to tell you the truth. We had a lot of fun. We got to know each other, and we bounced ideas back and forth, heard more of the story, and then just going through the whole thing, it put us into that immersion that you generally don't get when you're doing regular character work in voiceover. When I do video games, I'm by myself. I'm relying on the director and the producer and maybe the writers there too for context on certain things. And I may only have my own lines. So it was nice to be able to have the entire story and be able to rehearse it with everyone. So if anyone out there is interested in doing voice acting, use those opportunities. They're not standard out there. So really relish those times and take good advantage of them, because they'll only help you grow as a performer.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Leah, Tana, Dee Dee, Chad, you guys were the ones that were able to be in studio together in different capacities and combinations and things over the course of the recording times. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, just to reiterate, having the table read that we did over Zoom was invaluable, I think, to all of us. Certainly getting the beats of the story to keep in your mind while you are recording, so you kind of like have an idea of where the story is going and what you as the director and writer wanted to have it be. So that was pretty clear since we got that time to work together. And then I think just something that I thought about, and I was able to record with some folks, but the idea that you also have the audience in mind, right? And a lot about, it's not that long ago, but to us, 2026, it's a long time ago, where phone calls were more standard, text messaging, and having to communicate to another human with just your voice who couldn't see you. As someone who's very new to voice work, I thought back phone calls that I had with people, as a kid growing up, where I was like not getting my message across and figuring out how I could make my voice say what I needed it to say, which is a new thing for me as an actor, because I'm so used to using my body and my in performance. So it just required a different way to think about performance, which I know for Mark, who's done this for many years, that is, standard, and you have to use that imagination. But I think it was a new challenge for me as a performer.
I love that because that was also something I really enjoyed about this. This isn't a cast full of people who've done this for 40 years. This has all different levels of people who new to the voice work, experience in voice work. I mean, 2022, I started doing voice work in 2020. So I'd only been in it for 2 years by the time that we recorded this. So, this definitely had a lot of opportunity to really grow and learn as an ensemble, entirety of the cast. So that was also great. So thank you for bringing that up. Tana, Dee Dee, Chad, add-ons?
Yeah. For me, it was fun to work with Dee Dee and Chad on what I would call the very excruciatingly dramatic scene. And that really, being able to be at the microphone together was very helpful in getting that energy and that dynamic, which I don't think it could have been as successful if we were recording that particular scene separately.
Nice.
I remember, Chad, when you were having to die initially, in the recording booth, or there by the microphone, and it was the how close to the mic, how far away from the mic, when you grunt, scream, emote, the death sequences and that kind of stuff. So it was great to kind of have all of that together, and then all the movement that we had to have around there to create the death. So yeah, what do you guys take away from the time you were able to record together as that ensemble?
I think the immediate feedback, and what Mark's talking about, how he would send it and then they'd give you response and then we'd do it again. I mean, we do that with Jason when he does voiceovers for the theater. But having that immediate response of Jason saying, try it this way, let's try this way, and then just us talking about, what we were thinking, and he would ask us, having that immediate feedback, feels like it's theater, because that's what you get in theater. So I guess that means that if any of us go on to do more of it, we'll have to recognize that we were very spoiled, and it probably isn't going to be very often. But I think that's what made it so fun. because he would immediately give us that feedback about, well, especially my screams, do it this way, do it that way. And then with the three of us, I mean, I having not done the kind of, the recording work that you guys do, being able, and I think Mark said this is very rare as well, having three of us around a microphone, because we just used one microphone, right?
It was a single mic. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. Again, there was that feeding off of one another that was really rewarding.
I would also imagine, I know you didn't say this, Dee Dee, but considering you directed Jason in theater before, right? Or you at least just worked alongside him. I think it's interesting, like how positions change there, where like you go from directing him on stage, and he takes that stage experience to direct you in audio. I don't know. I just think that's interesting. For me personally, I think the thing I valued about the experience is just getting to see more of audio dramas at all. I mean, I've always had a bit of appreciation for the audio drama form, but I feel like it's one of those things that in the broader culture, it's not as appreciated, I feel like. And I don't know, maybe it's like sort of a similar issue as what silent film kind of dealt with, because this is like the inverse of silent film. It's its own storytelling medium with its own advantages and limitations. And I'd imagine it'd be fun for me to write a story in that form someday.
It's like the 21st century version of the old time radio dramas where the family sat in and watched the radio.
Like Dragnet, yeah.
Very much so. And another thing too is we often don't have the extent in many of these audio dramas. You do in video games though. All these emotes. This is full of crowd screaming and yelling and horror and dying and all that type of stuff. So I remember bringing my perspective in from video games to help out a little bit, give some ideas and advice on how we do that in the video game world. Because I mean, there you have to do it like a death or dying in over 5 or 10 seconds, but 3 different ways, or, and then take hits different ways and stuff. So giving them some ideas on ways to play with that, because it's really about play. It really is. It's becoming, but you still put yourself in that moment and try to, channel all that with your imagination, what your character is going through, and vocally paint that picture to people, because they can see with that type of sound that you're making what probably is they can imagine you writhing on the floor if you're all doing things like that, so but you see I'm actually moving a little bit while I'm doing that, right? So it's important to physicalize in that, but at the same time techniques comes in, because you want to stay on axis with the mic. So you got to be careful, and you want to make sure that you're not spiking levels, or the engineer has to go, okay, that was great, but our levels are spiked. So you're clipped really bad. So I got to adjust the levels, and you're going to do it again.
I think they all heard me say that a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure they did. Yeah. They go, God, that was really great. Can you do it again? I got to change the levels.
that might also be verbatim. that was awesome, but you peaked the chart. We got to go back and do it again. Yeah,
especially when you're talking about screaming. I mean, gosh,
screaming is rough. Yeah.
Or worse, you put in the best performance of your life, and you realize the mic wasn't on.
I know, it's terrible. That's worse. And then it's like, God, can I do that again? Can I put myself exactly in that moment and try to do your best to recreate it? It's true. But it is vocally stressful too, though. That's something else. A lot of actors, voice actors, do not want to do this type of work, and video games and other stuff, because of the stress that it can put on your voice. So it's really important to vocally warm up, take good care of your instrument and things, because after a lot of that yelling and screaming, you might be hoarse for a couple days or lose your voice, and you can do permanent damage if you're not careful. So it's really important to care for that instrument that we have, and a lot of people who do more commercial work, like I think it was Tara was talking about that. So or Tana, I'm sorry, I got my screen on speaker mode. Tana, sorry, I was like, it's tiny on my screen. I had to pop it up. Sorry about that, Tana.
No worries.
But yeah, it's it's really important that we care for our voice. And some people who do a lot of commercial work or industrial work, I do a lot of that too. But let's say you got a big commercial tomorrow that's, a national commercial, and you just screamed your voice out the day before for a video game or something. It's going to be hard for you to be able to be your best in that moment. So it's one of the reasons why a lot of actors either don't do it, or it was part of the IMA, the Interactive Media Agreement that was agreed to with SAG-AFTRA on this recent go-round with the new contracts, to be able to pay a little bit better for those vocally stressful type performances for actors because of, kind of hazard pay in a way. So, yeah.
Dee Dee is definitely the one you want to call for screams.
I love the fact that he called me Scream Queen, because my first 2 years of college, between 18 and 20, I performed in 4 melodramas a year, so 8 melodramas in those 2 years as the ingenue, and the ingenue always has to scream. But one was French and one was Southern, and so not only did I learn how, but I was in professional voice training at the time, so I was taught how to do that without destroying the voice. Because, you can destroy it if you don't know how to do it right.
Well, you guys remember when we did that, one of the things I mentioned to you is that's the last thing we're going to record today. Because once we get past that, there's no going back to the other one, So even if your voice doesn't get damaged because of it, the risk is there, so we've got to, try to, and I think I also mentioned to you guys, we're not going to do this very much. We'll do, a few takes and we'll just call it good. And we'll hope that we got something usable out of that, because it is a rough part of it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very tiring, and that's very common for a session to go that way because of the vocal exhaustion and physical exhaustion too. It takes, when we're performing very physically too. So it can just tire you out. So we always do that at the end.
I was young. I did 3 shows a weekend for 48 weeks. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was young.
Well, I remember when Ari and Brennan were doing their parts, and Jared too, actually, he had to be thrown to the floor. If you remember in the first scene where he plays the magistrate, was the throwdown, at the feet of the prince. And I said, well, there's a couple ways we can play this. You can, stand straight up and you can try to move a little bit, make it sound like you're being thrown to the floor, or you can get straight up and throw it to the floor. Right. I mean, it's you can do a couple of different ways. And so he just did one of those collapses on the floor. And I was like, man, this is great, because now we have the effect of hitting the floor at the same time. So there was just a lot of these things that really go well, that sometimes it's trial and error, but the physicality of it really helps sell it.
And Jared does physicality very well.
Yeah.
He's our certified fight choreographer for Romeo and Juliet. So,
perfect. Yeah.
If I could just say,
sorry. Go
ahead. Go on.
If I could just say, because Brennan couldn't be here, he is criminally underrated as an actor. I think he's absolutely solid, and I know he couldn't be here, but I just feel like that had to be said. So someone speak up for Brennan.
No, for sure.
Not underrated at all. We worship him.
I rate Brennan very highly.
Yeah. Well, Brennan is the only one that has been in every single one of these productions, because he's my buddy. So that was the Hercule Poirot, Captain Hastings.
Yes,
that was it.
That was your first bromance.
That's it, the first one, and then there we go.
Yeah.
Which
I love, because that was the script that I adapted from the book. Yeah,
it was.
So
I
love that.
Awesome,
yeah.
But no, I mean, you got to have somebody, if you're going to have a person walk through the journey with you. This is the one to do. So it's great to have that kind of relationship. Yeah.
Well, and that chemistry, you can hear that chemistry too in your guys' performances, and the way that you guys relate to each other in this as well as other performances. So, yeah, it's great when you have scene partners that are so good like that really help bring out the best in you. It's something to really be valued.
Yeah, I loved listening to when I was putting all the dialogue together. I kept all of it, and so I've got all everybody's outtakes and all that kind of stuff too. Because basically, it's just like push record and we go, and it's all whatever happens
Mm-hmm.
happens, and you try to select the right parts that match what you need for the production, later on. But there were so many times that we would misspeak or jump a line, or he'd say my lines, or I'd say his lines, and be like, "What's the matter with this? We've read this 1,000 times. What's the problem with us?" But we'd get through those parts, and you get the laughter and the goofing around and all that stuff too. It kind of shows you want to have it to where all the actors have a good time. It's also nice when you can look across and just like this screen today. Now these are all friends, right? This is not just a group of voice actors together, but it's a group of people that I really enjoy also being around and being a part of. So that's great when you can have that kind of a relationship amongst the cast. It's important. I think as Mark said, the chemistry comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Let him know you said that. He's sorry he couldn't be here today, but I'll pass that along to him.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think he knows how much we adore him, but you can tell him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one question that I wanted to ask was, what was your favorite part of the production? Like,
Can anybody jump in?
Well,
anybody, yes.
I can certainly jump in, but I'll let Leah take it because she was ready.
I was ready. I just listened to it, the full thing a couple nights ago, and I think what I loved about it was, Poe as a writer, very concerned with aesthetics and very concerned with the feeling that is evoked within his writing, and he says that even in his criticism, his literary criticism, and I think that the adapting it to what, as people have said, is essentially like the 21st century version of a 20th century audio drama, is that feeling comes through, and the feeling of the fear and the joy and the sort of unease. It takes you on. You feel those emotional beats from the way that the drama has been together. So I thought that that journey as a listener and as someone who listens to audio dramas and audiobooks all the time is, you get chills at points, and that was my favorite part.
I really loved I loved all of it because I listened to it, but the music really did an excellent job to intro, outro, segue, bed underneath. It was amazing. It was a perfect match. So good hiring there, Jason.
Yeah, Ross Bernhardt was our musician for this, and he did the musical score behind A Cratchit Christmas, one of our Christmas productions that Mark also knows something about there, Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge. So
yeah, that's right.
But yeah, Ross has a great way of adapting the music to the actual rough cut of it. So I sent him the whole story, no music behind it, obviously, but sent him all the thing we did, and then said, okay, I need you to score to that. So it's very much the same way that a composer would look at a movie and try to score the music to meet the scene. He had that full production that he could actually use to build that score. So yeah, that's great. He was a great hire for sure.
That's awesome. I still haven't listened to the full production yet, but in the scenes that I've heard, it really was coming together beautifully. All the elements, you did a really great job in audio production there, and blending all of the stuff with the drama. I mean, everything supports each other, which is really great. So I'm looking forward to listening to the whole thing. But as far as favorite part yet, so it's so hard for me to talk about that in a particular scene or anything. But overall, I would say it's that that it captures, like Leah was saying, it captures the essence of the story very well. Better than a lot of films have attempted to do it in the past, I think. Honestly, wasn't it Vincent Price that did the Masque of the Red Death? Yeah. And so I mean, it's an all right film. I mean, it's not terrible. It's still Poe. I still love the story, but I mean, this really was a very special production. I think the creativity and the writing really lent really took that story and made it into something that's much more accessible, I think, to a lot of people, because it takes it out of his Poe's poetic language and expresses that in terms of action and scene work. And so I thought, and yet still keeps the flavor. In fact, there's still some lines in there that are very much from the story. So Jason's been very good about being able to honor the material as well as adapt the material and make it into something that's new, but at the same time is still the essence of the truth of the original work is still there.
Nice.
Dee Dee, you're muted.
Yeah.
When I teach acting, I teach a lot about use of the imagination and visualization. And what occurs to me, as one of you, maybe as Mark was speaking, was I don't think that Jason described this to us, but my memory is so vivid that I could see those rooms as we were performing. I can still see them, you know. And so I don't know if maybe Jason said this is a room. I don't remember. I hadn't read the story in a very, very long time. But in my memory, and Chad thought it was 2 years ago, and I said 3, and then you said 4. It's like 4 years ago. Gosh, Jason. But I still very clearly in my visualization, in my mind's eye, I see those rooms we were in. And I think that just like live theater, if we can visualize as performers where we are, the smells, the scents, and all those kinds of things, our audience will, whether they can see it on stage or whether they can just hear it. I think that makes so much difference. And it really sticks with me that I still remember exactly what I was visualizing when we were there that night.
Good.
Yeah, I'll say for me, one of the parts that I really enjoyed, I think the most of it was trying to create death as a verbal character, right? Because there's no lines for death in the original story. So it can either be done campy or it can be done hopefully the way it came across, where it was honoring the essence of what this figure was supposed to be doing and creating almost this sinister, malicious figure where you only hear a whisper, but you know he's there for the probably about a good 10 minutes in the story. And then right toward the end, you actually hear some of the rationale behind the action and creating that dialogue. And then as Mark mentioned, bringing some of the original Poe lines into it to really carry some of that more literary feel from Poe's original work in, for me was probably one of the most important parts for me to write, was to get Death a realistic character that people can understand, hate, but appreciate at the same time. And then to be able to bring that as the closure to this whole story.
Yeah, Jason, one of the things when I was listening to it is that you basically created the visual villain, the antagonist to Prospero's protagonist. And because in Poe's story, yes, the Red Death is the villain, but you don't think of it as the person that is creating all this havoc. And so you did that very well by how you did the lines and things, and especially, of course, the end. I told you this, the last line of the whole story is my favorite part.
Yeah, and that was really important to keep. Right, that's how the actual story ends, and I wanted this one to end with that. No matter what, how it turned out, that line was very important to me.
But creating that true, like, this is the actual villain, the antagonist. It's going to give people a different way of perceiving this production versus reading Poe's story in a good way, in a very good way.
Great.
Well, and the story, which Jason really carried through, the point of the story is mortality, death is just inevitable. You can't escape it no matter what you do. And that's exactly what Prospero tried to do. And Jason's adaptation carried that essential nugget of the message beautifully.
Yeah, it was amazing because he really personified in the dialogue that he gave to Death that I was able to deliver. It was very clear how to be able to channel that. I'm basically the personification of a force, right? Of just an existence of something. So it's just came into being, and I'm not really the villain. I'm really kind of the hero, aren't I? In a way.
Yeah, the hero, anti-hero. Yeah.
The anti-hero in a way,
Yeah.
kind of. Well, all the best villains are the heroes of their own story anyway.
Yes.
But definitely Prospero, not exactly a heroic guy. You know, he's kind of pretty awful in a lot of ways. So he gets his, it's karma coming back to, to get him with all the stuff that they're doing and subjecting his people to outside the walls. So it was a lot of fun to be able to personify that and to be a force that's unstoppable. I mean, that's the whole thing. I'm Death. You can't avoid me.
Yeah.
You're going to have to. This is it. There's nothing more. This is your lot. Now enjoy. So.
Yeah. I think Chad, you had something to add too.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Jason. Mark plays both the Mummer and Red Death himself. I'm wondering, is that intentional in the same way that like Mr. Darley and Captain Hook are traditionally played by the same actor?
Well, so the term mummer, has a couple of meanings, and it's kind of a meaning A, meaning B, right? Meaning A is someone whom you do not hear, right? And so it's essentially it's a character with no lines, nothing is said, which is what the original character in the Masque of the Red Death was, and the reason he was called that is because it was an entity, but it did not speak. The second part is the part B of this is an acted out figure or a character, and it doesn't necessarily have to be mute by vocalization, but it is something that is like non-standard to the scene or it's a characterization of something in particular. And so that really made me not take away using the word mummer in there, because I thought that by itself was important to keep, but using kind of the part B definition of it instead of the classic it's not going to talk definition of it, which obviously would not be true for the way that the character was written in the story. Yeah, but essentially the Mummer and Death are the same character. It's that the first time that he is seen is they just feel like that's somebody wearing a costume that just braced, Prospero as he was on his way out of the apartment, not realizing that was going to be Death when it was all discovered. So it is the same person, yeah.
Okay.
It's good foreshadowing in a way too.
Yeah. And I was going to add too that my character of Viceroy, when we're talking about heroes and anti-heroes, and is Death the hero? Is Prospero the hero? I mean, it's easy to argue Prospero's not, right? I mean, he's a horrible king, a horrible prince. I mean, just kind of the way it goes, and he's thinks that he's got the ability to defeat Death just by like moving to a different house, So it's kind of the way it goes. But my character I enjoyed writing because I was trying to put him in the middle between the two, not necessarily the kind of over the top hubris element that Prospero had. Someone who was providing counsel, someone who was trying to even in certain lines trying to tell him, you may not want to actually do that. I'm trying to draw him back, into thinking through what he wanted to do, but he was always, let me just go. Let me just do this. I want this to happen. I want that. You make it happen. You're the Viceroy. Get out of here. Make it happen. So I was trying to be that, create a character that could have been between the two. And in the first script iteration, I had Viceroy live. Because of living in that white space between Prospero and Death, that Death would see that and give him the ability to live a longer life. But I also determined at the end, I think some of this was also thanks to Chad's review, on the script, was coming back saying, is that reasonable to really do that with a character? Because in the end, he did participate along with Prospero. He's complicit in the whole thing. So he's not a good guy either, and there's a lot of that if you make that character live at the end, what does that say for the illimitable nature of death when it's all said and done? And the reason that, determined, in the more recent iteration of the script that, Viceroy had to go too.
Well, and this goes back to my interpretation of any of Poe's works, is that he uses his characters, whether they have speaking parts or not, very interchangeable, to where you get to choose who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, because there's no true archetype placed on them. It's like with the Cask of Amontillado. One minute you read it, you're all on favor of, how horrible Montague is, and Fortunato is in the right. And then the next time you read it, you're exactly the opposite. You're on Fortunato's side. And that's the one thing with Masque of the Red Death. Every time I've read this, I never see Death as the antagonist. I've never seen that way, because in another way is when Prince Prospero, in my point of view, he's like Minnie, if you put it in a real life, whether it's now or whether it was in the days when Poe was writing it, you put it in the perspective of society at the time, to where it's like, yes, you try to outrun what you know is inevitable, but whether you get it at that moment or whether it's years down the road, it's still inevitable. But how it happens to you and what you suffer in the long run is kind of what, to me, Poe was aiming for. So in the story, I just don't feel that, whether when Poe wrote it and even when you adapted it, Jason, I don't think Prospero suffered enough, in my opinion. There was not, to me, it's like he was still getting away with it. And it's like Death should have done more. There should have been more, to where Prospero's people around him were the ones that were suffering for Prospero's crimes, where it should have been Prospero who got the most. And Death was like, he's like, you can run, but you can't hide. I'll eventually. And so that's one of the things that I love about this story, is the many interpretations and the dramatic irony of the audience, whether you're listening to it as an audio drama, whether you're reading it, or even if you're watching it visually. It's just one of those things, and like with Poe's works, they are so adaptable to how you interpret. And that's just, whether you're reading it interpretation, whether you're watching the interpretation, or you're adapting it yourself for your own creative drama, and that's one thing that with Poe, it's like, and I know with Dee Dee, who teaches, if I'm correct, right? You teach daily, and I think others are also in the teaching. Mark, you teach more of the vocal. Dee Dee, you and Tana, right? Yeah.
Tana, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys are, the visual, and I think Leah, you also teach visual a lot too. And as well as I do, in theater drama, it's you've got the dramatic irony of the audience watching versus what you're doing on the stage. And in vocal, when you're using your voice to create the different types of, like, when you're feeling afraid versus when you're trying to project it on stage, it needs to have that balance of whether you're reading it or anything. And I think Jason brings this alive in his audio dramas, to where they do have that reminiscence of remnants. So that's a tricky word, of the early 20th century radio dramas, like Johnny Dollar and Dragnet.
Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah,
all the cool ones.
The Shadow.
Yes, the Shadow knows.
Jeanie, you're talking about the the visual part of it and the death part of it. And the last like 15 to 20 minutes or so, well, probably more 10 to 15, is a lot of that, a lot of the various stages of illness into death. And it was also challenging in this. And one of the reasons that like, it was really important on the ensemble crew is that can be overwhelming. You've got 10 minutes of people screaming and dying. I mean, at some point you turn it off, right? Because it's too much, and you don't have. So it was also a delicate balance on that because you needed it. Like the story relied on it, but you can't overwhelm the listener with it. And that was a tough one to do.
Yeah, because you have to have that balance, because you don't want to lose the audience. And if you lose the audience, then you've lost the story. So I think it's a very nice balance all the way around for putting a story that originally was written just to be read. Because back in those days, I mean, sure, Poe would read them out loud. Like if he was meeting someone on a Saturday afternoon, you sit around and you read stories out to those that can't read, But it was a step up from the oral traditions that had come before. So, and now we are, to me, dramas is cyclical. You start with the oral tradition, and then you went into the silent films, and then the radio dramas, and then the visuals. And now we have the AI versions of, you can just create it by typing it in, to where now it's like we're going back to where we're getting to where the audience needs to be involved. So I like that.
Yes.
And that's what I love about the audio dramas that Jason gives us. And especially when he adapts it with Poe. Because, I'm a Poe person, You've got to love the Poe. Now, your Christmas adaptations were great too, because, you got to put the Cratchit in there.
That's right.
And all that. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with Christmas Carol too. It's good. But, this is things that we want, and this helps us as a channel that is trying to reintroduce and keep Poe alive.
Yeah,
that it helps us too. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Yes. And speaking of Poe, anyone can answer this question, and this is something we always ask our Gothic guests. Jason has had to answer this question. So, what is your connection to Poe? Is it a deep one like Jeanie and I, or is it more of just I read him in high school, middle school, junior high, or whatever? Or is it something, is he an author that you want to read, go back to from time to time because you do love his work? And so I'm just kind of curious about that.
I'll go ahead and say something. He's an author that I do go back to and reread. In fact, A Cask of Amontillado is like, that's one of my favorites of his, and I've reread that I don't know how many times. It's just a lot of his works. There are just times where it's just kind of fun to go back and I see new things in them when I go back and revisit them. I hadn't read Masque of the Red Death for a while before doing this production, and I went back to reread it just to kind of reorient myself again to the story. It was really fun to be able to do that and see the contrasts and the new development that we were bringing to this story. So yeah, so I'm definitely sort of like you. I mean I have a lot of books I do reread and stories that I reread. But Poe is definitely one of my early formative on Gothic horror and things like that. Also H.P. Lovecraft. A lot of, and more modern people like Clive Barker and Rice. So there were a lot of different influences on me, and continue to be.
Okay. Nice. Yes. Anyone else?
I read him first in college in just a general lit class. I think that was my first introduction. But the thing that I love about Poe, for me as a lifelong lover of his work, is he was the first author that I read where I specifically read his work on writing. So he has a wonderful essay on the philosophy of position, I believe it's called, where he talks about his process of writing the Raven he uses, because it was sort of, it's the one that's really well known. And I have a love of writers writing about writing. It's the meta-ness of and the explanation. So because of that exposure to that essay, that's something that I always look for whenever I am learning a new author's works. And so I think back to being introduced initially to the poetry, but just the idea that you could engage with an author in a different way with their work is, I think, what I appreciated, because so much of his writing was also literary criticism, and it's not really what we know today, but it, as like a writing tradition, I think it's one of the things that I appreciate about his work.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, Poe is very broad. Yeah, like you mentioned, Leah, he was a critic. Yeah, that's one of his main ways of supporting himself, was being a literary critic and a proponent to, protecting the rights of writers. He was one of the proponents, or one of the people who was behind copyright and all that kind of stuff. So, he is a well-developed character in his own right to helping others become a well-developed character, whether it be an author, whether it be a critic, whether it be a reader. So we all have different values. It's based on certain people we've read, certain things we've seen. But I believe Poe continues to touch you in different parts of your life with his life. So that's one of the things that we like to expand upon when we talk about Poe, when we get to talk to other people who are experiencing Poe in a different light. So
I think one of the things that makes Poe so long lasting is his insight into human nature, but even deeper, human psychology. Yeah.
Yes, we discuss a lot of his trips into psychology when we discuss his works on Poe Unplugged and the different things that he's brought to life. Never bet the devil your head, and all the things of the psychology, and also how his depth into spiritual, not just psychological, but spiritual aspects of mythology, whether it's, organized religion, spiritual aspects of it. And I think Masque of the Red Death is one of those that, to me, touches upon his take on heaven and hell, and the way that you perceive it. But he doesn't, how should I say this? He doesn't beat you over the head with his religion. He just introduces it to you and lets you decide. So now,
which is one of the biggest differences between the script that I adapted and the Roger Corman version, which was very, satanic in nature. Where to me, that was not, important to bring forward into a story like this. And, it was more important to tell the tale more closely aligned with the original concept, the way I viewed it.
Yeah, and we appreciated that very much, because Carmen and I had just finished doing our review of Masque of the Red Death, which we did not plan that. It just happened to fall that was our review morgue of the movie for this month. And it just happened to be, Masque of the Red Death. And we're like, wow.
Well, what a lucky accident.
Yeah, kind of like me being in Boston and 15 minutes away from the statue.
It's all lining up.
Exactly.
Took 4 years, but it's all lining up.
Yeah, and Jason, you said lucky.
I think he's watching us.
Yeah, Poe actually, because Bob Ross is attributed to, happy little accidents. Poe actually used happy little accidents in The Gold Bug. And so I attribute Poe to that first. I haven't found anything different, but anyway, just a little nugget of, information. So Jason, with the 5 that you chose, kind of like, I'm assuming you kind of chose like kind of at the beginning of, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
What kind of decision did you make, like, to save Masque of the Red Death for last? Like, was there a certain reason, or?
Yeah. So part of it, I looked at it as what stories would be more complicated than others, and I felt like leading off with the Raven was a good one because it was safe. It was something that the script was not going to be overly intensive to craft. It's essentially the poem. I only wrote one stanza. For anyone who hasn't heard our adaptation of the Raven, the opening stanza is not actually the opening stanza of the Raven. It's one I wrote in the same meter and that kind of stuff. But we also changed verbiage to bring it more into a more modern understanding, instead of the way it was written in the 1840s. So but that was just our adaptation piece of it. But I felt like it was a safer one to begin with. And then from there, I learned a lot. Went into Cave of Amontillado, and then that was one that I felt was probably our most complicated at the time, but I could bring more aspects into it. You could hear drips in the catacombs, and I looked into how do you make it sound like someone is struggling to get out of chains while someone else is walling them up with brick and mortar, and trying to get that combination in the soundscape, worked through. That worked into, and then I went into a kind of an offset where we did Manuscript Found in a Bottle as the third one. And that was really just me. It was a self-narrated singular version where I played various other roles and things, interjected them as behind the scenes. But it's a story I really enjoyed, and it's one I wanted to tell, but I didn't want to really take that one and adapt it because I really actually liked how it was in first person narrative. And I didn't want to change too much of that to bring another full cast into it, because really outside of the suite and the ship's captain, it's very much a singular entity. So it was kind of a challenging story to do most of that, but I really loved it, and so I wanted to do that. But because of the way that all three of those worked, I think the script for Telltale Heart was actually probably the most different from the original Poe story, to create the bookends with the farm or the barn, be able to have the killer escape, to be able to give a few other pieces to it that kind of expanded on the universe a little bit of what I wanted to do in these stories. But Masque was intentionally saved to the end because I knew it was going to be the most complicated of every one of them. It was going to be the one that had the highest likelihood of being awesome and the highest likelihood of being a problem. And it was, and only because of kind of what I mentioned at the end. How do you make it sound like 1,000 people are dying and not want to just turn it off? And so that was something that I was like, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but I really want to tell this story. And then I had to also find a way to take a largely first person narrative, very low dialogue story, and create something that could be dramatized. So it was just going to be a challenge from the script to the effects, to the sound design. It was something that I knew was going to be a struggle. And so I did definitely save that till the end. And I'm glad I did. I think it was the right call. It really panned out.
Wonderful.
I'm going to have to leave. I'm going to have to leave you here. My battery's dying, and I'm freezing.
Oh yeah,
my
it's
gosh.
cold up
Okay,
there. Yeah.
Hannah, thank you for joining us.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye,
thank you.
everybody.
Tell Poe we said hi.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to
Ian,
take off in a second here too. I've got to.
Yeah, I think we're coming to the end.
I've got to get the. I'm sorry. It's just the computer repair place closes at 4 our time, and I've got to go pick up the lightning cable broke off on my charge thing for my iPhone.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like I know. So it's like so I have to go pick it up before it's it closed today. And anyway. But it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting
Absolutely.
our two hosts and
Thank you
seeing
so much.
Jason and everybody else. Thank you. And everybody enjoy the production as much as we did putting it on, I hope so. Can't wait for you all to hear it. So
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for joining us, and
Thank you so
thanks
much.
for everyone. Yeah.
Yes.
Dee Dee, did you have anything you want to add to anything that's been said before we wrap it up?
Just a thought that just occurred to me. I'm in grad school right now, and I finished a couple of weeks ago with reading Dr. Faustus. And in talking about this, he had to have read it. It had to influence him in some way. I never made the connection because I hadn't read Dr. Faustus probably since I was in my undergrad, which was just a minute ago. Anyway, but just in thinking, in talking about the Masque of the Red Death, it certainly seems like it must have influenced him, whether consciously or unconsciously. Just throwing that out.
Yeah. It's funny how that works out, because I mean, we've been talking about many of different his works, and then people have this epiphany of like, wait a minute, I wonder if he got that because of this, So that's one of the things of Poe's works that we love. And for anyone that's listening to our discussions, we want to definitely say that on May the 16th. Correct me. I'm correct, right, Jason? It's right behind my head for anyone that doesn't know.
It's been a great ad.
I can't. Yeah, I thought so. The world premiere is May 16th, so anybody can check it out themselves and delve into the wonderful world of radio drama once more, and love to listen to.
Yeah, and I'll add on that May 16th at 8 p.m. Eastern on our YouTube channel is where it's going to be originally displayed for public viewing. We'll do pretty much available on all the platforms after that. But May 16th will be the actual premiere date on our YouTube channel. And for anyone who has done that before, we have some of the cast members online as well. While we're doing that, at least, myself and a couple others who are available, we'll have live chat going at the same time. It runs about 35 minutes, in general. So it's just a fun time to be able to talk with the cast online, answer some questions, and be able to enjoy the first time in a live, full viewing session. But it'll be available on Audible, audiobooks.com, Barnes & Noble, you name it, afterward. We did do a first day retail release with Dramify.com. So it'll be available with them right after the 16th. And so that'll be the first place that we have this put out for the public. But I do want to add also that right now the CDs are in production, and we're doing a two-part plan with this pre-release. Is if you pre-order the CDs, which have a 20% discount on our web store at markiewitzAudioworks.gumroad.com, where you can go to our website and find the link. That any of those CDs that get purchased between now and May 16th, each of the cast members that voiced a role in the story get a bonus per CD sold. So it's a bonus to each of the cast members as well. I do make it a point to pay all the cast. No, I cannot pay a whole heck of a lot, and they all know it. It's something I would love to be able to just make this a very profitable experience, but nonetheless, time is valuable to me. And even doing what I can do, I think it's important to know that the time and effort they spent to learn the script, learn the lines, take the time to come up and do the recording was important to me. And nothing says that more than being able to compensate for your time. So it is important. But each one of the CDs that get sold will go back, to the voice actors that helped to make this successful. So
well, we just love working with you. So.
Well, thank you very much.
I do hope that I get to work in a future production for sure. This first time was nice. A second time would be even lovelier, I'd imagine.
Yeah, there'll be more coming. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. More the merrier, and keep us posted, and we will happily pass it along to anyone that will listen, whether it's Poe related or not.
That's right. That's right. So does anyone have any other thoughts before we end our discussion?
It was an honor.
Well, thank you guys for being here. This has been an awesome
Thank you for having us.
Guest session. Yes, thank you guys so much.
Yeah. We love getting involved with the people, whether it's Poe or not. I mean, we have all sorts that we love to bring on our channel, so we can get everybody as much as we possibly can to, get involved with our Poe and get involved with your stuff. So, just keep us involved and look out for the May 16th world premiere for Markiewitz Productions of The Masque of the Red Death. And we hope to hear and see more from you in the future, whether it be with Markiewitz or any of your other various projects you've got out there. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we appreciate it. And on that note, we are Poe
out.
Thank you.
Thanks.